Thank you.
The public hearing is now open, and Mr. Chairman, you can state the terms of the case.
Right, thank you. First of all, I would like to make clear that the ZBA's meeting tonight to hear an appeal from the cease and desist order from the former zoning enforcement officer, and that will be the topic we're focusing on tonight, and the only topic. I'd first like to read the letter that's in question, and Bob Fennell, our former CEO, is kind enough to come by this evening, and I'll let him make any comments he wants to. The document that's being appealed is dated August 1st, 2013, and it's to the owner of the property at 47 West Market Street. And it says, as I pointed out to you in my letter of May 16th, 2013, the zoning law of the Village of Rhinebeck does not list sheltered workshops for the mentally handicapped or outpatient substance abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers as allowable uses within the Village Center zoning district. As a consequence, the use of your property at 47 West Market Street by the previous tenant, the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene, as a mental health center was a non-conforming use under the terms of the Village of Rhinebeck zoning law. When the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene ceased its tenancy and the building was leased to 3 new tenants in 2011-2012, operating distinctly different programs from the previous tenant, this change in occupancy constituted both intensification and a modification of the previous Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene non-conforming use. Section 120-52B of the Village of Rhinebeck zoning law prohibits the expansion or intensification of a non-conforming use, and Section 120-52D prohibits the modification of a non-conforming use without prior approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then only to a use that the Zoning Board of Appeals determines to be of the same or of a more restrictive nature. Therefore, your current use of 47 West Market Street by 3 new separate entities providing treatment for substance abusers is in violation of both Section 120-52B and Section 120-52D of the zoning law of the Village of Rhinebeck, in that the change is an expansion, modification, and intensification of a non-conforming use. You are hereby ordered and directed to comply with the zoning law of the Village of Rhinebeck and to cease and desist in this change of this non-conforming use at 47 West Market Street on or before September 1st, 2013. Sincerely. Bob, do you have any clarifications or?
Not at this time.
Okay. As long as you're here. But I thought we ought to get your words out there. And now I would like to, and I want to reassure everybody that the members of the board have been familiarizing themselves the last couple of weeks with the rather voluminous files that this property has accumulated since its initiation in 1975. This is the appeal which was received October 12th, 2013, and this is the matter of our discussion tonight. It's from Jeffrey C. Martin. And this is just a cover letter. Please take notice that the petitioner, Daniel Kolnagi, I hope I pronounced that somewhat accurately, hereby appeals to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Rhinebeck, County of Dutchess, State of New York, from an interpretation, decision, determination, and order as noted in the Zoning Enforcement Officer's letter of August 15th, 2013, wherein the Zoning Enforcement Officer alleged that the property located at 47 West Market Street is currently being operated in violation of Section 120-52B and Section 120-52D of the zoning law of the Village of Rhinebeck in any and all parts and issues associated therewith. The nature of the appeal is based upon the grounds that the interpretation, decision, determination, and order is incorrect and is not consistent with the use and occupancy of the building, and that the current use and occupancy of the building does not violate any pertinent and appropriate sections of the Village of Rhinebeck zoning law, the details of which will be provided to the Zoning Board of Appeals by separate cover. Consequently, the respondent respectfully requests that the Village of Rhinebeck rescind the cease and desist order and allow the building to be utilized in furtherance of approvals which were previously provided by the village for the use and occupancy of the building, or, in the alternative, grant to the petitioner additional approvals, different or modified approvals with reference to the use and occupancy of the building based upon the current use and occupancy of the building, the details of which have been known and continue to be made known to the village, as a result of which, among other things, the village should be stopped from proceeding with an interpretation, decision, determination, and order which alleges that the current use and occupancy of the building is in violation of certain zoning laws and regulations. The notice of appeal is being forwarded to the Office of the Village Clerk, the Office of the Zoning Enforcement Officer, and the Office of the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's dated October 11th of this year. Now, is Mr. Martin, you have some things to say about your appeal?
I do.
Good. Would you help us through it? Sure.
Would you like me to speak here, or how would you like to proceed?
If you're happier on your feet, there you are, or have a seat.
I'd be happy on my feet if you don't mind.
Fine.
First of all, I want to thank the zoning board.
But maybe turn on the microphone. Is it on?
Hello?
Speak into it then. Yeah.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? All right. My name is Jeff Martin, and I represent the owner of the property at 47 West Market Street. His name is Dan Kolnagi. Dan has owned the building since the year 2000, and what I'm going to present to the Zoning Board of Appeals is a copy of our exhibits that we're going to give to the Zoning Board of Appeals for consideration this evening. I also have a number of witnesses who are going to be testifying today, but before they testify, I'm going to give a brief overview of the property, the ownership of the property, the approvals that were provided to the property during the course since 1975 up to the present time. So if the board allows, I'll be happy to pass out these exhibit lists.
Thanks.
Hi, Jeff.
Okay. All set?
Sure.
Okay, before I start, I'd like to just point out and identify some of the people who are here today who have businesses in the building, representatives of the not-for-profit agencies, and who have voluntarily come here tonight, take time out of their day, take time away from their families, and some of whom have driven a long distance to be here to testify. They're going to be testifying under oath, presenting information to the Zoning Board of Appeals to provide some background as to exactly what they do in that building and the services they provide for those of us here who are not familiar with that. Carter Hastings is a property manager. We have Barbara Schatz here, Bob Cancelero, Jim DeStefano, Noni Kelly Jacob. We have a representative from the County of Dutchess, Margaret Hurst, and we have other individuals as well. We have Vicki O'Brien, we have Mark Sasbury, and we have Kevin Hunziker. Now, with reference to the property, some of people in the audience might remember that there was an AMP that was originally in that building a long, long time ago in the 60s and 70s. For whatever reason, the AMP couldn't survive, and it went out of business eventually. The property, which is owned by Sandy Williams, there was a hope for Sandy to develop the property in some particular way, and he had applied for a couple of uses for that property, which were denied. And then in 1975, almost 40 years ago, Sandy submitted an application to the village to allow for a clinic building for Department of Mental Hygiene for mental health. And that was approved. 6 days it took for the approval. It was submitted in April 11th, 1975. It was approved 6 days later. I would point out to the board that we do have a copy of the building application, which was submitted on April 11th as an exhibit. We have a copy of the Village Planning Board minutes, which confirmed that the approval was given 6 days later on April 17th, 1975. I also would note for the board that we also provided to the board, again, a copy of the notice of appeal, which Mr. Johnson, you did read, and then a supplemental notice, which is about 16, 17 pages, which provides a history concerning the property, both the ownership as well as the occupancy. It addresses the procedural issues, which I'm going to be talking about, and it also addresses some ancillary issues, which I believe bring a lot of the people here tonight. I also would note for the audience, we've made copies of the notice of appeal, the supplemental document, the 16 or 17-page document. We have about 75 copies. Help yourself. They're here for you to take. They're here for you to read. They're here for you to understand what's going on. They're in this box. At the end of the day, perhaps you'd want to take one home and take a look at it. We have attached as an exhibit a village site plan approval letter dated April 29th, 1975, which essentially confirms that the Village of Rhinebeck approved the renovations that Sandy Williams had completed at the property in order to allow it to exist as a mental health clinic almost 40 years ago. Thereafter, the building underwent some renovations. The zoning code changed, and in 1988, the building, the owner at the time, Sandy Williams Still, had applied to the village in order to substantially expand the building that existed in 1975. As an exhibit, we have attached the application for the site plan approval, the zoning application, which sets forth an architectural design of the building, and that application was approved by the village in 1988, and a certificate of occupancy concerning the renovation was approved and signed by the village on December 22nd, 1988. That date is significant because Sandy Williams received approval when he first owned the property and first renovated the property for about 25 clients and maybe office staff of maybe 6 to 7. In 1988, the village approved a much larger use of the building, and the use of the building allows for up to 70 people daily, clients, up to 20 staff, and up to 49 parking spots. That's approved by the village in 1988. Subsequent to that time, for various reasons, as in accordance with the zoning officer's obligations pursuant to their employment, they're required every now and then to provide certificates of compliance. What does that mean? If you buy a home, you're going to get title insurance probably, and you're going to receive something from the zoning officer saying that the home complies in all respects to all zoning in the area, in the village, in the town, the district, wherever the home might be located. So from time to time, the village prepared certificates of good standing, if you will, and we have those attached to the exhibits as well. A village certificate of compliance, March 29th, 1990. Again, what does that mean? That means the building complies in all respects to all zoning within the Village of Rhinebeck, with no violations, no deviations, no exceptions. In 1995, there is a village certificate of compliance, which again reiterated that the building complies in all respects to all zoning regulations in the village. There's a certificate of compliance for 2000, which confirms that the building complies in all respects to all zoning. In 2010, the current owner, Dan Kolnagi, who purchased the property, by the way, in the year 2000, had applied to the village in order to make some internal renovations in order to allow for more tenants to come into the building. They applied to the village to do this. The village knew about it, and the village approved it. What does that mean? It means that the village approved the allowance of other people besides the County of Dutchess to have their offices in the village building. The village building permit was submitted on June 9th, 2010, and again, the certificate of occupancy, the document that's, the village says that the owner has complied in all respects to the application, has satisfied all the requirements that the village mandated, has been satisfied. And that certificate was granted by the village on May 10th, 2011. Around that time, 2011, the County of Dutchess implemented a policy which they had begun years back to divest themselves of direct involvement. Direct involvement meaning paid employees by the county to provide mental health services. And as a result of that, the county occupied that building, and there was a smooth transition to allow the not-for-profit companies to take over the same services, the same clientele, and the same responsibilities that the county had personally assumed through their employees. And that happened around 2011 and 2012. And again, the purpose for the renovation of the property in 2011 is to make room for the tenants to occupy that building, because the county was going to divest themselves of actually providing the services. At the present time, and we have a wonderful witness who's going to talk about this, the county still manages all of the services provided by the occupants of that building. The county still controls all of the services provided by the people in that building. The county contracts with these people, Lexington, Hudson Valley Mental Health, and Occupations. Every year, the county signs a contract with these corporations, and every month, as you will hear, the county oversees their operations. There's nothing that those companies do that the county didn't do. There's nothing that those companies do now that the county didn't do back then. So to be perfectly very clear on this, there's no change in the services that are provided by the current occupants than what the services were provided by the county. There's no change. No change. Zero. Okay. So having said that, again, all of the exhibits are attached, they're numbered, and we have the appeal for the audience. With the permission, I'd like to start calling some witnesses, unless there's any questions of me at the present time. However, let me do this. Let's address the issue which brings us here, and then instead of saving that for last, we received a letter, Dan Kolnaghi, from the zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Fennell, who's a wonderful person, and I think the world of you, truly, has sent a letter on behalf of the village suggesting or alleging that the building is being used in violation of the current village zoning. And there were two sections of the zoning law that were identified that the allegations were that Mr. Kolnaghi, through the use of the building, has violated. The first one is Village Zoning Law, Section 12052B. I'm going to read that verbatim. A non-conforming use shall not be enlarged or extended beyond the area occupied by such use at the time of the adoption of this chapter. By the way, this chapter was adopted in 2001. Non-conforming uses may not increase their intensity by increasing the number of people working at a non-conforming business. We respectfully submit that we have not violated in any respect this provision. More specifically, the use of the building has not been enlarged or expanded. There's been no application to further expand the building. The building is what it is, and that was approved in 1998. So there's no more of a building that was built. There's no addition that was used. The building, as it is used now, was the same as the building as it was approved in 1988. Non-conforming uses may not increase their intensity by increasing the number of people. The county will testify that the number of people who occupy that building has decreased since the time when the county was involved in the facility. I'm going to repeat that. When the county was involved in the facility, there were a number of clients, a number of staff that utilized that building on a daily basis. That number has decreased, not increased, decreased, since the time when the county divested themselves of use of the building. The second zoning section is Village Zoning Law, Section 12052D, which states, and I'm reading verbatim, A nonconforming use shall not be changed to any other nonconforming use, nor shall a nonconforming use be changed to any other use within the same use group without prior approval of the Board of Appeals, and then only to a use as determined by the Board of Appeals, which is the same or restricted nature. As I previously mentioned, the use of the building has not changed. It was approved as a mental health clinic in 1975. It was continued to be used as a mental health clinic for almost 40 years. There's no change there. The people that use that building are mental health providers. They're spectacular people. They have received the highest accreditations from New York State that New York State could possibly give. They have received them. They're managed and controlled by the County of Dutchess, and all is well in that building. They haven't used that building for any other reason other than providing mental health services for some people in the audience, for the village, for the town, for other people in the surrounding neighborhood. Okay, so that address is respectfully submitted. That addresses those two zoning provisions. In the appeal, there's more details concerning that, and there's a lot more information about that, but to paraphrase for your benefit and for benefit of the audience, that's our position. Now, having said that, we realize that there's some issues that are going on which bring you here today. We've realized that there's some public hearings. We've realized that there's some politicians, elected officials, who have expressed some concern about issues which, in all due respect, are irrelevant to our use of the building. It doesn't make us violate the building because someone got arrested. An occupant or a client might go to the building and then thereafter allegedly commit some crime. There's just so many things you can do, but the thing we can't do is we can't manage people. They're not under arrest. They're not under supervision. They're not under any control by the tenants of the building. They have no right to supervise these people when they leave those building grounds. They have no right, they have no obligation, and they'd be superseding the rights of the village police and other people if they took that role on themselves. So what happens when people leave happens. That doesn't mean that the landlord is not concerned. It doesn't mean that he doesn't want to try to remedy the problem. Prior to coming here today, I've written letters to the Zoning Board of Appeals, I've written letters to the village attorney, and to Mr. Vanel. We've engaged in meetings, and I would just state for the record that my client, Mr. Kolnagi, would be happy to continue to work with the neighborhood, would be happy to continue to participate in workshops, would be happy to continue to find some solutions to the problems that bring you here today. But I emphasize, he doesn't have to do that. That's not his responsibility as a landlord. He wants to do it because he's probably one of the nicest people that you've ever want to meet. He's not here tonight because he's a family man, and he's dealing with a family issue, as he should be. However, he sends his regards to all of you, and he very much wishes he could be here, I promise you. In any event, having said that, with the permission of the zoning board, I'd like to call the first witness. My question is, where would you like the person to stand or sit, or how would you like that to happen?
I think if they would identify themselves so we can understand who they are, if they would stand where you are, that'd be fine.
Wonderful. Carter Hastings? Carter, I want to just ask you, we're going to share the mic.
I have a loud voice.
You have a loud voice, all right. All right, Carter Hastings is here as the property manager for the property in question, 47 West Market Street. He's going to testify how long he's been doing it, what his role is, what his responsibilities are, some of the issues concerning the property, and a reiteration of the willingness for the landowner to address some of the issues that we might hear about tonight. So having said that, Carter, I'm just going to ask you some questions. Where do you currently reside?
Kingston, New York.
All right, and what is your occupation?
Real estate property manager,
How long have you been doing that?
22 years.
Excuse me, can everyone hear that clearly enough?
No.
I don't want to have my back to you.
No, have him come closer to the mic.
I got a big mouth.
You know what? Let's-
Well, I don't think you're quite carrying back there, Mr. Hastings.
You have to share the mic.
Ooh, is that me?
All right, so how long have you managed, do you manage the property 47 West Market?
Yes, I do.
And how long have you been doing that?
I have been managing real estate for 22 years.
All right. And have you managed the property since the time that Dan Colnaghy purchased the property?
Yes, I have.
And that was, again, when, in 2000?
Yes.
All right. All right. Now, when Dan Colnaghy purchased the property, who was in the property?
Dutchess County Mental Hygiene.
All right. And to your knowledge, they've occupied that property for a very long time. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Now, you're aware, just to reiterate, and heard what I said about the approvals of the property in 1975 and 1988. Is that right? You're aware of
Yes.
those? All right. And with reference to the renovation, which was completed in the year 2010, that renovation was to accommodate the tenants that would be coming into the building. Is that right?
Yes.
And you applied to the village in order to receive approval for the renovation of that property. Is that right?
Yes.
And the renovation was completed at that property in conformance with the requirements of the village, is that right?
Yes, it was.
And were the renovations completed successfully?
Yes, they were.
And as a result of those renovations that were completed, you, the property owner, received the certificate of compliance, is that correct?
Yes, we did.
All right. And just for the record, could you tell us who the architect was who completed that? Was that Paul Vosberg?
Yes, it was.
How did you come about using Mr. Vosberg? Out of Red Hook?
The county had more or less suggested that he would be a good person to do the job.
All right, and the builder was CJV Home Improvement, is that right?
That's correct.
Where are they operating out of?
Out of Kingston.
The final certificate of occupancy was given to you from the village on May 10th, 2011, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I would just reiterate, the Zoning Board of Appeals has a copy of that as part of the exhibits. Now, in 2011, around that time period, you became aware that the county was going to divest itself of providing the services directly that the county had provided for a number of years. Is that right?
That is correct.
And as a result of that, some leases were drawn up with the new occupants of the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those leases were signed 2011 and 2012, right?
Yes, they were.
One of those leases was a continuation of the county lease. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
At the present time, the agencies that occupy the property are Occupations Foundation, is that correct?
Yes.
And they occupy about 80% of the building, is that right?
Yes.
The next one is Hudson Valley Mental Health. That's another occupant.
Yes.
They occupy about 20% of the building, is that right?
Yes.
And a portion of that 20% is also occupied by Lexington, is that correct?
That's correct.
They're all not-for-profit agencies, is that
Yes.
correct? All right. Now, since the time that you have managed the property, have there come about some instances which have occurred with the property that you've had to address as property manager?
Yes, I have.
And one incident was people smoking on the premises, is that right?
Yes.
Could you tell me what the problem was first?
Well, they were I believe Occupations had apparently told the patients, clients, that they could no longer smoke on the property, so they had to take it to the edge of the property line. And when I found out about it, I basically went to the tenant and basically told them that this couldn't be and that it needed to go back the way it was, and they cooperated, and we got the clients to smoke on the back end of the property, which can't be seen from the road, and it's much better.
Okay. Were there any other instances? I'm going to help you out a bit. There's a border in on one section of the building.
Yes.
Where there's a fence and then there's trees, is that correct?
Yes.
And who lives next to that?
Mr. Gee?
All right. And did you have discussions with him about some kind of a crack in a tree?
Yes.
All right. How did that?
I'm sorry. No, I didn't have a discussion with him. I had a discussion with a tree company.
All right. And how did it come about that you had a discussion with a tree company? How did that happen? Did they call you or you call them?
Yes, they called me.
They called you. And what's the name of the tree company?
Integral Tree Service.
How did it come about that they called you? Who called them for them to call you?
Mr. McGee did.
All right. Mr. Gee.
Mr. Gee, I'm
All right.
sorry.
And did you have discussions with the Integral Tree Service people?
Yes.
And what were those discussions about?
We met, we looked at the tree, and Mr. Gee was right, there was a crack in it, and preventive maintenance, we basically had the tree cut down by Integral.
All right, and who paid for that?
We did.
All right. So to recap, you received a call, or Mr. Gee made a complaint about a tree which formed a barrier between his property and the property in question, 47 West Market?
Yes,
And you talked to the company that he recommended?
yes,
And you paid for their services?
Yes.
And you remedied the problem?
yes.
All right. Now, there was another problem with some bugs in trees, something like that?
Yes.
And how did it come about that you learned about that problem?
I was contacted by Mr. Gee that there was a problem with bugs in the evergreens, which I believe is a problem on the northeast. And
All right, so how did he contact you? Telephone?
I believe so, yes.
All right. And did you go then and inspect the trees?
Yes,
All right. And the reason I'm suggesting, the reason why is because it forms a buffer between his property and 47 West Market. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's important to maintain that buffer pursuant to, first of all, because you want to, your property manager, but also it's a good neighborly thing to do.
yes, absolutely.
All right. So did you then address the issue concerning the trees?
We did.
And how was that addressed?
We hired Integral Tree Service to come in, and they treat it, I believe, once a year, possibly once every couple of years.
All
But
right.
they come and inspect it every single year to make sure the problem has not reoccurred.
All right, and so you continue to hire Integral Tree Service, you pay for their services in order to maintain the trees which border Mr. Gee's property?
That is correct.
All right. Now, was there another incident concerning someone cutting some of those tree limbs in that area again?
Yes.
And what happened with it? In other words, how did it what was the problem?
I had received a phone call from another gentleman who does work for us, and Mr. Gee had apparently contacted him and said somebody was cutting some of the border between the two properties.
Okay. And did you go and investigate that yourself as well?
I did.
All right. And how was that issue remedied? How did that problem get fixed?
The limbs started growing back.
All right. So you didn't need to do anything other than just watch them grow and make sure they were there before they were cut down?
That's correct.
Mr. Martin, is this getting towards the intensification or modification of the use of the property in some way?
No.
Let's stick with the issues. We've got a lot of people here, a lot of
I appreciate
testimony.
that, but I think I need to conduct my defense, in all due respect. I appreciate that, but we're going to do it.
Well,
And I'll do the best I can. I'll do the best I can. I appreciate that, but I have people coming from a long distance. They want to leave too, but we need to prepare a proper record, and I intend to do that. I'm almost done with him, just in case you're wondering.
I think it's not only people who want to leave, but people who want to speak.
I appreciate that too,
Good.
but they don't own the property. Mr. Hastings, Mr. Kolnaghi pays taxes on this property, is that correct?
Yes, he does.
And over the course of the years that he's owned that property, it's accurate to say he's paid about $436,000 in local taxes for that property?
Yes.
And that averages out to about $35,000 a year, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And you're the property manager, you continue to maintain that property, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, the parking lot is there, and we will hear people testify that they're done with their business 2:30, 3:30, and they don't use the building on weekends, but the parking lot is still used on weekends, is it not?
That's correct.
All right. And it's used after hours, is that correct?
Yes.
And it's used by village residents, it's used by people who might visit the town?
Yes.
And you really don't have any problem with that?
No,
All right. Now, it's used by the funeral home across the street?
it has been, yes.
All right. And you don't have a problem with that either? Not really? You
Not
haven't done
really.
anything about it yet?
No.
All right. Now, as I mentioned before, Mr. Kolnaghi, through you, stands ready, willing, and able to address any of the ancillary issues that we might hear tonight, and stands ready to address those issues, even though, again, they're not particularly pertain to zoning, but he remains willing to participate. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. No further, does anybody have a question of Mr. Hastings?
Any member of the board have any questions for Mr. Hastings?
Thank you.
yes.
Mr. Martin made it sound like the 2010 application for the building permit was for the purpose of these new tenants, but they didn't arrive until 2011 and 2012. How is that possible? Did you, when you made that application for the building permit, did it say on there, on the application, that it would be used for these new tenants? Do you recall that, Mr. Hastings?
I know when I came and got the building permit here, they knew exactly in the village here what we were doing
Which
as
was,
far as the county was getting out of the business.
you said that at that time.
No, that's the truth. They knew why we were subdividing. They knew why we were basically doing the construction work on the interior of the building.
Anyone else?
What was
No,
indicated on the building permit, though? That's what I'm asking.
I don't think we can open the questions to the general public. Everybody who knows Bob Fennell knows that he is no mere member of the general public, but we'll have to keep the questions for members of the board.
Thank you. Margaret Hurst?
I think Bob can ask, but Bob is, it's his order that's appealed from.
Ms. Hurst, how are you doing tonight?
He's a member of the public. That's my ruling. He's ex.
Ms. Hurst, if you could just identify who you are, please, and your...
Could you
why you're-
speak up?
Yes, I've asked Ms. Hurst to identify who she is and where she works.
I'm Margaret Hurst. I'm the Division Chief for Clinical Services with the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene.
How long have you worked for the County of Dutchess, ma'am?
I've actually worked for the department since 1978.
1970. And you have certifications?
I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
All right. And where did you first begin your employment?
My first assignment in the county was at the facility on West Market Street here in Rhinebeck.
Really?
Yes,
And what year was that?
1978.
Okay. And since that time, you've been employed by the County of Dutchess in various capacities, is that right?
Yes.
What is the current nature of your duties?
Now I oversee all of the clinical services that are operated by the county, both directly and through our contract agencies for mental health, chemical dependency, developmental disabilities, and for adults and children.
And could you talk a little bit about the nature of the county's divestiture in providing direct services through payroll? And just work us through that scenario, please.
This is a kind of a long-standing trend that we've had in the Department of Mental Hygiene, which started many years ago with our adolescent day treatment services. It was a program that we provided ourselves through the Department of Mental Hygiene, then transferred to our Astor Children and Family Services program. Through the years, we've done that with many other programs, to the point where we're at now, where we really only have two programs that we operate directly for clinical services, our partial hospital program and our intensive treatment alternatives program. We have other support services and core programs, but those are the two clinical programs. The rest, through the years, we have transferred to our contract agencies.
All right. So for each particular not-for-profit agency that occupies that building, could you tell us what the county does with reference to managing and oversight?
With all of our contract agencies, we do have a contract that is renewed yearly. It's a performance-based contract where we identify key outcomes and indicators that are expectations for the services that they provide, the financial viability of the program, and we look at these. We look at the performance indicators on a quarterly basis. I meet with these agencies monthly. My Director of Administrative Operations and Budget and Finance Director joins me on a quarterly basis to not only look at the services and the quality of the program, but also at the financial, how they are doing financially on a quarterly basis.
And specifically, you oversee, manage, and control Hudson Valley Mental Health, is that correct?
Yes,
And you oversee, manage, and control Lexington, is that correct?
yes,
And you oversee, manage, and control occupations, is that correct?
it is.
And what you said about quarterly reports, monthly meetings, oversight, working on the finance, working on the budgets, for each one of those not-for-profits, you do that for each one of them, is that correct?
We do, yes.
Is it also true that the services they provide are the same services that the County Duchess provided when the County Duchess was in that building?
Yes, it is.
And is it also true that the number of people that currently use that building, staff and clients, is less than the number of people, staff and clients, which used the building when the County Duchess ran that facility?
Yes, it is.
Other questions?
I have some questions.
Oh.
Pam, thank you. Could you describe, so you currently oversee and manage and control all of the 3 tenancies at this property. Is that what I understood your testimony to be?
Yeah.
Could you describe in detail the nature of the services provided at this facility?
Occupations provides a personal recovery-oriented service called PROS. It's really designed to treat people with longstanding mental health issues, and has a recovery-oriented approach to help people who have this long history of a serious chronic mental health issue achieve a full recovery, if that's possible for them.
I don't mean to interrupt you at all, I just don't want to get, could you describe recovery from what? What is the recovery from?
From the debilitating effects of their mental illness.
And is the mental illness, does it have any particular complexion? I mean, is it any kind of mental illness? Is it, I mean, I'm partly getting at, is it drug-related in primarily, or you're speaking just of the first tenancy now, correct?
I'm talking about occupations.
Occupations, which is one of them, right. So on that one, what's the nature of the drug-related recovery that you oversee the management of?
Their primary issue is a mental health issue in occupations.
So what are the diagnoses, for instance?
Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression.
Any criminal issues connected to the mental health?
Not usually.
Okay, do you want to continue with respect to the occupation, or, because you have
Unless
3
you
of
have
them,
other-
right? So that's the main one on the first one, right? And the second one?
Hudson Valley Mental Health is an outpatient mental health clinic. They say people with a primary mental health diagnosis as well. They're just at a different place in their recovery and require a different level of care.
Okay, so again, the diagnoses are schizophrenia, bipolar.
Yeah, but they also
Depression.
may have an anxiety disorder, or some other less then you might not be suffering from a psychotic disorder, but some other kind of a mental health issue.
So with
An
both,
anxiety disorder, an affective disorder, something like that.
so when these particular individuals go home, they live in their houses. Where do they live when they're not at occupation or Hudson Valley Mental Health?
They live in their own homes.
They live in their own homes. Okay, and under unsupervised. There's no issue with supervision there. They live on their own independently, to your knowledge.
The people receiving treatment at the Hudson Valley Mental Health
Correct.
Clinic usually are living in their own homes, yes.
But they're not gainfully employed, or they wouldn't be
They may be,
coming here.
yes, certainly.
And the third tenancy?
The Lexington Center for Recovery,
Correct.
it's an outpatient chemical dependency program.
Okay, so could you describe what the nature of the chemical dependency program is?
These are people that are recovering from an addiction, who require active treatment to maintain their recovery, and that's what they're getting at the clinic.
And what was the nature of the chemical dependency that they had?
It could be an alcohol problem, it could be another drug-related type of problem.
And when
on
you say
these.
other drug-related problem, could you identify what drugs you're speaking of?
It could be the use of illegal drugs, or it could be the use or misuse of prescription drugs.
So when you say the use or misuse of illegal drugs, you're speaking of drugs for which they may have been charged with a crime?
Could be.
And have some of them, in fact, been charged with crimes? Or
Some.
been served time, for instance? To your knowledge,
They may have.
would you have?
Yeah, I have three short questions and would value three short answers. In '79, when you came, was the chemical dependency, substance abuse work done in the building at 47?
Not in that building. It was done in Rhinebeck.
Where was it? Where was it done?
It was in a building on the grounds of Northern Dutchess Hospital.
So there was no chemical
yeah.
dependency facility, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
This is number two. Are there services provided by the three tenants of the building in general, only during the daytime hours, or are there evening hours there?
There are evening hours.
And in the monthly meetings that you had, I'm sure that they were entirely, or they should be entirely professional, but do some of the instances that Mr. Martin has cited that caused neighbors' concerns, do those come up, or are you simply speaking as professionals?
No, we speak about those things as well. We did speak about those.
So there's a sort of ongoing
Yes,
conversation?
and, I have a formal meeting once a month, but we speak frequently, on the telephone, in person, throughout the time.
Thanks.
Could be a daily basis.
Thanks. Other
I
questions?
have one question which may have been answered, but when you changed this program to, shall we say, subcontract, did you go before planning or before the village and inform them of the change? I know you did physical changes, but, well, I assume you would be the one that did it because you're changing the program. You're subcontracting it. Was that ever informed to the village? Because I was not available at that time, so I have no idea. Did they know that you were changing the
I
program?
really can't answer that question. I
Okay.
really don't know the answer.
I just want one point of clarification, that's my last one, that I believe you testified that there had been no change in use of the programs from as to your knowledge, 1998 to the present time, but you also testified that the chemical dependency program was an addition to the program as of what date? In other words,
I'm not sure I understand the program, because we've always provided these services here in this town.
But not
They've
at
always
this
been present.
But not at
So-
this facility. At what point did the chemical dependency program switch to this current facility from the Northern Dutchess Hospital?
In 10, 11?
Something like that, yeah.
2010, 11.
2010.
Are
Okay.
you asking from the county to the private?
I'm just
No, from the
asking at what
hospital
point,
to this,
from the hospital to this location? Right? The chemical dependency switched from the chemical dependency program switched from under the auspices of the Northern Dutchess Hospital to under the auspices of this current location in 2010, 2011. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst.
I want to clarify one thing, though. Ms. Cavell, you mentioned under the auspices, it was just located at Northern Dutchess Hospital, is that correct? And just to reiterate, the substance abuse, chemical abuse situations for which people receive treatment, the county has always done that, have they not?
We have.
But you know that that's not relevant because we're talking about the use of this property. Right, I understand that
Well,
this,
I just
who's
want-
providing the service.
Right.
But thank you for the clarification.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Barbara Schatz. We are having a person testify from each agency, from each not-for-profit that occupies a building. So, Ms. Cavell, you might have specific questions with substance abuse with Lexington. I think they'll be happy to answer that question. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. All right, Ms. Schatz, you've heard the protocol here. Just want to ask, where you currently reside?
I reside in Red Hook.
All right. And are you familiar with this area? Did you grow up around here?
Oh, yes, I grew up in Statsburg.
All right. What is your occupation now?
I'm a New York State licensed clinical social worker.
And could you just tell us a little bit about your employment history?
Sure. I was the clinic coordinator for a clinic in Westchester Medical Center. And then from there, I worked for Grace Smith House, which is the domestic violence program here in Dutchess County. I directed both shelter programs over a 12-year period, and also directed their non-residential program. And then I started with Hudson Valley Mental Health in 2007 to the present.
All right. And do you currently serve as the Director of Operations here in Rhinebeck?
Yes.
All right. And could you just tell us briefly what Hudson Valley Mental Health does?
We're a contract agency for the county, a non-for-profit agency that provides integrated, comprehensive mental health services to folks in your community and the surrounding communities.
And what type of mental health treatment specifically did you provide?
We provide individual therapy, group counseling, medication management, and medication education.
And you were previously located where before?
We were located in a building on the Northern Dutchess Hospital grounds, right across from the emergency room.
And you occupied the building where you're now working when?
That was June 21st, 2011, we moved into the current location.
All right. How did it come about that you were asked to move? Who asked you to move?
Dutchess County Mental Hygiene asked us to move there for economic reasons.
All right. Just a question that I have. The theory of the county divesting themselves of paid employees to provide the service is supposed to save the county money based upon your involvement in your not-for-profit. Is that happening?
Yes,
It is. It's saving the county money.
yes.
Okay. How is your agency funded?
We're funded through Dutchess County, the state, of course, private insurance. We take patients that have private insurance. I think state, county, I'm just like trying to think through my list.
Medicaid?
We take Medicaid, Medicare, all private insurance companies.
And the people that come to your facility, where do they live?
They live in the village of Rhinebeck, the town of Rhinebeck, Statsburg, Hyde Park, Clinton, Tivoli, Red Hook, Rhinecliff. That's our catchment area.
How is it that they actually come to your clinic as opposed to somewhere else? Who refers them?
Well, they could be referred by their their physicians. They could be referred by the pastor at their church or family or friends that know about our services. They could be referred by a hospital, another community provider. So there's various ways that people are referred to us.
And what is the type of treatment that you provide? Daily, weekly, month? Tell me about that.
We provide individual therapy, and depending on the person's needs, we could see them weekly, or we may see them every 2 weeks if they're not in crisis. So they're met with a New York State licensed clinical social worker that would meet with them for their therapy, and if they need medication and want to take medication, then they would either meet with we have a board-certified psychiatrist on staff, as well as a board-certified psychiatric nurse practitioner.
All right. What are your hours of operation?
We're Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 9 to 5, and on Tuesdays, we're from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
All right. And how many staff is employed in that facility?
I have 2 full-time New York State licensed social workers, clinical social workers, a board-certified psychiatrist, a board-certified psychiatric nurse practitioner, myself as a licensed clinical social worker and director of the program, and clerical support staff.
And how many clients are in that building for your agency at any particular time, per hour, let's say?
Oh, per hour, okay. There's about 6 per hour,
6, all right. That's on average.
on average.
And as far as the county oversight, could you just explain a little bit, I know Ms. Hurst talked about that, but could you tell us about the county oversight and what they do to manage and control what you do?
Well, we have, like Ms. Hurst said, we have a contract with the county. And so we are under their auspice, and they audit us. They audit our records monthly. We have to do monthly reporting. We also have what's called a utilization review annually, in which the county will randomly pick records of clients that we provide services to see that, one, we're providing the level of care that they need, and that we're meeting clinical standards that they expect of us. So we go through that annually with the county. And then the state also audits us, and we operate under the New York State Office of Mental Health, and they issue us operating certificates. So they do a very thorough audit. In fact, our last audit was last year, and we received a 3-year certification, which is the maximum you can get from the state, which means that we provide quality services within a certain clinical standard.
Is it an accurate statement that the services that you provide are the same identical services that the county provided when they were involved?
Yes,
There's no other services that you do, no other programs that you offer that the county didn't offer when they were providing those healthcare services? Is that
no,
correct?
no.
Questions?
Not at the same site.
I'm sorry?
That's the question. Not at the same site. Her service that she's providing were done in another site. They moved into this new site. That is the crux of the question.
I will accept that. I'm not sure if that's a statement or a question, but do you want her
It's
to, is that a
double, it's
question
double.
for her?
Well, no, I've,
Is that a question? I'm not sure.
no.
Okay.
I'm-
Any questions for her?
Yeah, I believe you testified that the services that you provide are the identical services that were provided by the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene when it operated at this site at 48 West Market Street? Is that, so this,
Oh,
could you clarify that then?
sure. The services that were provided by the mental hygiene office was the day treatment program. We're not a day treatment program. We're an outpatient clinic. The day treatment program is a higher level of care. If we feel that clients need a higher level of care, we would refer to that program, which is now occupations.
Which is
Does
now
that-
the other lease holder in the building.
Right.
But you testified that you see patients from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 PM on, I think, Tuesdays?
Tuesday.
But you understand that the program received an approval for a day treatment clinic, correct? That the approvals under which you're seeing
For this building.
for this building denotes a day treatment clinic, but you're now seeing patients up until 9 o'clock at night.
We're not a day treatment clinic in how you're describing it. We're an outpatient clinic that provides services. The patient doesn't come in daily to our
So what's the difference between a
building.
day treatment clinic and an outpatient clinic?
Well, it's a higher level of care, and
Which
which
is
means
a higher level of care?
the day treatment.
Meaning what? I mean, I'm not a mental
And
health
I
professional. I don't know what
understand.
that means.
It means that a client may require more services than like our outpatient clinic, because if we're only seeing someone once a week, or say every 2 weeks, that may not be sufficient to address what they need.
So is the word day relevant here? Does it mean during the day as opposed to night? Or is it, I mean, honestly,
not.
I'm really,
Yeah,
what does it mean?
Okay.
Day
and
treatment has
actually,
nothing to
I
do with day.
probably-
Is that what you're saying?
What was that?
Day doesn't mean days.
Day doesn't mean day.
No.
It doesn't mean day as opposed to night. It means something else.
It means something else, yes.
Daily.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
Any other questions? Thank you, Barbara.
you're welcome.
Thanks very much, Ms. Schatz.
Bob Cancelero. Bob. Bob, how are you?
Good.
All right. Mr. Cancelero is here from Lexington Center for Recovery. Mr. Cancelero, could you tell us a little background where you reside, please?
I reside in Mount Vernon, New York.
And your occupation currently?
I'm the operations manager for the Lexington Center for Recovery in Dutchess County.
And could you talk about the history of the Lexington Center for Recovery a little bit, please?
Yeah, the Lexington Center for Recovery was founded in 1982 in Westchester County. It was first called the Weekend Center because it served individuals who are affected by drug and alcohol abuse and were primarily citizens who worked during the day and didn't have time to go to treatment, so they came on the weekends. And it soon after that changed names to the Lexington Center for Recovery. We run clinics in Dutchess County, Westchester County, and Rockland County. We run day rehabs in Westchester County and Rockland County. And we also have a number of housing programs, gambling programs, adolescent programs in both Dutchess County and in Westchester County.
When did you begin occupying the building at 47 West Market?
We moved into 47 West Market in June of 2011.
All right. And had you essentially taken over the services that the county used to provide?
Yeah, we've been a contract agency for the county since 2003.
All right. And so when the county divested itself of those services, which includes substance abuse,
Yes.
and this county did those services,
Yes.
the Lexington took over where the county left off, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And could you talk about those specific types of services that Lexington provides?
Yeah, we provide services to people who are affected by drugs and alcohol, recovery services, primarily group services and individual services. We're also for people who are what we call dual focus clients. These are clients who not only have issues with substance abuse or alcoholism, but also have mental health issues. We'll provide them with psychological evaluations. We'll provide them with medical management, and nursing services as well.
How are the people referred to Lexington?
Well, some people refer themselves to Lexington, people who perceive that they need assistance. But the majority of the clients that we serve are referred to us by the courts, by probation, by parole, by CPS, and other agencies.
Now, as far as substance abuse, we're talking about drugs and alcohol, is that right?
Yes.
Are they active users? The people that are treated by Lexington, are they actively using?
The operative word is recovery. We're the Lexington Center for Recovery. We treat people who are in recovery. If while they're with us, they begin to use and abuse drugs or alcohol again, we typically refer them to a higher level of care. It could be a day rehab. It could be a service that sees them more times a week.
And where do these people, to your best of your knowledge, reside? Houses, group homes, et cetera?
Yeah, the people that we serve in Rhinebeck reside in and around this community. They reside in Rhinebeck, they reside in Hyde Park, they reside in Red Hook, Tivoli, Stanfordville, Clinton Corners, Pine Plains.
And what are the hours of your operation at that facility?
Our hours are exactly the same as Hudson Valley Mental Health's. We are open 4 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 to 5, and we stay open until 9 o'clock on Tuesdays.
And what is the client census, generally speaking, per hour, or how does that work for your agency?
Right now, we're serving 23 clients.
All right. And not all 23 people are there at the same time?
No, we run 4 groups in Rhinebeck. We run 2 groups on Tuesdays. They're typically evening groups. One starts at 5 o'clock, ends at 6:15. Another starts then and ends at 7:30. We run a day group on Wednesday, and we run a day group on Thursday. The enrollment in those groups is right now about 10 individuals, of which 7 to 8 show up on a regular basis.
And can you tell us about the staff census, the number of people that work there on behalf of Lexington?
We have one full-time employee who works in Rhinebeck, although she only works there 4 days a week. 1 day a week she works in Millbrook, and we have 2 part-time employees, one person who does groups for us and another person who does intakes.
And are these persons certified alcohol substance abuse counselors?
Yeah, all of our counselors are what the Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, OASIS, that's our funding agency, what they call CASACs, Certified Alcohol Substance Abuse Counselors. 2 of our counselors are also master's degree social workers.
And you heard Ms. Hurst testify and Ms. Schatz testify about the county oversight. Does the same apply to you?
Absolutely. We meet with Margaret and speak with Margaret Hurst frequently. We report to her on a monthly basis. We do major reporting on a quarterly basis and yearly.
All right. And so it's an accurate statement that the county manages, controls your agency. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We have performance-based goals that we must meet all the time.
The state also looks after your agency and does some reporting. Is that correct?
Yes, our state overseer is OASIS, and they come in and evaluate our programs periodically. We recently had an evaluation and were granted a 3-year license. We're licensed until May of 2016, which is the maximum 3-year license you can get.
So just to clarify, if the state conducts an oversight of your agency, they could recertify you, or they may not. They could give you a 1-year recertification, a 2-year, or a 3-year is the max you could get.
That's correct.
And you received the max.
Yes, we did.
What does that mean? How come you got that?
Well, it means the only way you get that is if you're doing a good job. And if
And to be clear on this thing, the services you're providing in that building are identical, the same services the county provided for people when they were running it. Is that correct?
yeah, we do the same thing that the county did as far as substance abusers and alcoholics are concerned.
Any questions?
Where were you located before you moved into 47 West Market?
The Rhinebeck Clinic was on the grounds of Northern Dutchess Hospital.
Yeah, do you have any other sites in Dutchess County?
Yes, we do. We have a methadone clinic, 230 North Road. We have 2 clinics in Poughkeepsie, one in Page Park Drive in the town of Poughkeepsie, another on Main Street in the city of Poughkeepsie. And then we have smaller, what we call satellites in Rhinebeck, Millbrook, Dover Plains, and we also run a substance abuse program at the Office of Children and Family Services facility in Red Hook.
Thank you.
That's for adolescents.
Do you have any other substance abuse facilities that directly abut a residential neighborhood?
Yeah.
Other places and
In Dutchess County?
Yeah, well, I forgot to mention we're in Beacon as well. And Beacon, we're right on Main Street in Beacon.
But that, so
There are people that live right next door, yeah, the residential homes right next door.
I want to get clear about something that I'm not clear about, which is you have said that this facility, this particular facility that you run is exactly the same as the facility that was run by the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene. Is that correct?
No, I said that the services that the county provided to substance abusers and alcoholics is exactly the same services that we provide.
The services provided at this location are exactly the same. In other words, this location always serviced substance abusers.
I actually don't know what the county did when they were in the building before we came.
They were in Northern Dutchess Hospital.
But, okay, but that's the question that we want to know. So I'm not sure if you can then clarify, because it's not clear to me. At what point did you move into this building?
June 2011.
Okay, and you took it over from the Dutchess County Department of Mental Health at that time?
No, we moved our program
Right.
from Northern Dutchess Hospital to 47 West Market.
Okay, but
We had already worked for the county.
you don't know what was going on at that building before you took over?
I don't know.
You have no idea what was
Well, I
going
have
on?
an idea, but
Do
I'm...
you know, okay, let me rephrase it. Was there substance abuse counseling going on at that building before 2010, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Consular.
Jim DiStefano, how are you?
Good evening.
All right, could you just tell the audience who you are and why you're here?
Sure. My name is James DiStefano. I have the privilege of being the president of the Occupation System of Care, and I do, with your permission, have some cards and some material. In the interest of time, I'm not going to cover everything that we do. My purpose here this evening is to give you a broad overview of our system of care, and Ms. Noni Kelly-Jacob will answer a lot of the program-specific questions that I'm sure that you have. So with your permission? Don't I have one of these for everyone?
Oh, we're sharing time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
If you want to look on.
We appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and to speak with you. For our part, and I know for my colleagues and for the county, the first thing I want to say to you is our purpose is to be good neighbors wherever we're located and to be responsive to boards, town mayors, which we have been, and as you've started to hear, hopefully be responsive to the needs of the neighbors. As an organization, I'll give you the big picture. We're in 7 counties of the Hudson Valley. By a lot of standards, we're not IBM, but we're a large not-for-profit. We have about 1,500 employees, about an $80 million budget, and we provide a very wide variety of services. Everything from vocational services, transportation services, mobile mental health services. We're one of the largest providers of outpatient mental health services in the Hudson Valley. We have almost 3,000 people in our clinics throughout the Hudson Valley. Those clinics are in Orange County, and the program you're going to hear about from Ms. Kelly-Jacob shortly, which is the building in question. We are a very large residential provider, including supported apartments. We have community residences that serve people with developmental disabilities. We are a very large contractor at the United States Military Academy at West Point, where we provide vocational opportunities for people. We contract directly with the federal government, United States Department of Defense, Defense Supply Center, Philadelphia, General Services Administration, where we have taken what would be referred to as sheltered workshops, if you will, and transitioned them into employment opportunities with people for special needs so that they can earn minimum wage or better in some cases and actually provide support, direct support to West Point and to our military, to warfighters. We're very proud of our history. We are very proud of being community-based and community responsive. I have cards here I will leave for you. My personal information, my cell phone number is on that card. When we go throughout communities, and I've been to probably, in my 40 years, I must have been to 40 public hearings for residential development alone. And I would say to you, in this situation, what we would say to a community where we were coming for the first time into a neighborhood for a community residence. This is our 50th anniversary, our 50th birthday. We are here. We are part of your community. We have large contracts in Dutchess County, particularly with the government center. We are the prime janitorial contractor for the government center. which is part of our employment opportunity. But we really want to be good neighbors. We want to be responsive. And it's not easy. And I know for some of you who live in the neighborhood, I know some of these situations have been difficult. I can only say to you that we try to take things directly. We don't dodge problems. The people we serve are complicated sometimes and complex. I would also say the obvious. We're not busing them in from Cleveland. These are your children, these are your neighbors, and they are people that live here in this county. And we have spent the last 50 years committed to helping those individuals lead lives that have been as integrated in the community as possible. I will admit to you, tonight was the first time I toured the facility. You asked the question earlier about, is this a regular, normal, does one of our colleagues have other similar programs in the community? The answer is yes. This is a perfect site for us to provide this service. It's why the county selected it. We consider it an honor to be here, a privilege to be here. It's a beautiful community, it's a beautiful town, and we don't want to detract from that. So all I can say to you is you have my personal commitment and our executive team and our leadership team to do everything we can to help individuals we serve integrate into their home community. They live here. Thank you.
You handle autism, sir? You handle autism?
Yes, sir, we do.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're all set.
Thank you, Mr. DiStefano.
We have Noni Kelly Jacob. How are you? Good. All right. Just by way of background, we had a presentation concerning the general occupations and what they do, and a wonderful presentation. Noni, you're going to be talking about what happens at this facility.
That's
Is that
right.
correct? All right.
Yes.
And personal information, where do you reside?
I live in Middletown.
All right. And you work here at the occupations?
My office is in Poughkeepsie.
Okay.
All right, I've been working for occupations for 2 years.
And what is the nature of your occupation? What's your title?
My title is Program Director for the PROS programs for occupations. They have a program in Rhinebeck, Millbrook, and Poughkeepsie.
What type of clientele do you service? Now, it's an occupation service.
The PROS program services clients with serious mental illness who have schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, and major depression.
And the people that visit your facility, where do they live? Where do they come from?
They come from Rhinebeck, Rhinecliff, Statsburg, Hyde Park. Trying to think. I think that's the major areas, yeah.
And do they live in private homes or somewhere else?
I'd say a large number of our clients live either with their families or on their own in apartments. We also have a number of clients who live in community residences and assisted living.
And how is it that a person is referred to your program?
The client could self-refer. We get referrals from St. Francis Hospital, from other mental health outpatient programs like Hudson Valley Mental Health.
Okay, all right. And the hours of your operation?
8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Okay. When you say 8:30 to 5, do residents or clients use the facility all the way up to 5 o'clock?
No, the clients actually come at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we have groups throughout the day, and the last group ends at 2:20, and they leave the building at that time. We do have some clients that might come for a special appointment with the doctor or a nurse and might come at 3:30, but for the most part, most of our clients are gone at 2:20.
And how many clients occupy that building at any particular time per hour or something like that?
We average daily attendance of about 43 clients per day.
All right. They're not all there at the same time?
Not necessarily. You might have a client who comes in at 9, stays till noon, and goes home. Other clients that might come in at 11 and leave at 2.
All right. And could you tell us about the staff? the staff census at that building?
Yes, we have 2 team leaders, 3 social workers, 3 pros specialists, a nurse, and a part-time psychiatrist, and clerical staff.
How do people get there? How do they,
Variety of ways. Some people walk, some people have
can I just ask, when they walk, they walk from,
where they live.
if they live in the area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. So they may walk. We do have people who get Medicaid transportation through, and they receive taxi service to come in, and we also have family members who drop people off. That's the primary ways.
All right. And the services you provide are the same services that the county used to provide when they were involved in that, is that right?
Yes, that is true. The county provided day treatment services, which have, throughout New York State, day treatment services have converted over to PROS, and the PROS model is different because in the past, clients would come to a program and stay in this program for a number of years, and really just kind of stay there as a day program. You come for a day program. Now, the goal of PROS is to really help clients in their recovery from mental illness. So it's helping them get the skills that they need so they can lead their lives again, so they can get a job and get a place of their own and move forward in their lives.
All right. No, we're not staying in the system forever.
Right.
All right. And you've heard the other people talk about the county oversight. That oversight applies to your agency as well?
Absolutely. We meet with Margaret monthly. I talk to her at least once or twice a week. We do reports for her about the kind of outcomes we're having with clients. Absolutely the same.
And the county manages and controls everything you do at that facility?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, you're also certified by the state, is that correct?
Yes, the state does certification visits with us. Since PROS started, they only give 6-month certifications, and we've received 2 of those. And now the most recent one, we've received 1-year certification. So they kind of build it up when you're new type program.
Mm-hmm. All right. And the 1 year was the top that
So
you could
far,
possibly
yeah,
receive?
yeah.
All right. And just to reiterate, there's no services in addition to what you're doing that the county did? You're doing
No,
the same
no,
thing.
we're doing the same services, yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, do you know how many members, how many of your patients take Medicaid transportation to your facility?
I would say probably more than half.
And where, do you know where, you probably do know where they mostly come from? Those people are not living in this immediate, they're not obviously not
Right, they're
walkable.
coming from, they could be coming from Statsburg, which would get Medicaid transportation from there, or Hyde Park, those areas, town of Poughkeepsie.
And what renders them eligible for Medicaid transportation? Is it because they don't own their own car, or because income level? Or
No,
what's
if you
the-
have Medicaid and you need transportation to go to a doctor's appointment or a psychiatric appointment, Medicaid will provide that.
How many patients do you service per day approximately?
About 43,
43 a day.
yeah. Some days a little bit, a couple days, you might have it a little lower, a little higher on another day.
And so 43 every day.
So you might have, yeah, right. You might have 38 come today, and tomorrow you might have, 48.
Do you know whether any of your patients have criminal records?
Probably some of them might, but they don't have any active history right now. There's
But
no
do
one
you-
we haven't had any referrals from, the criminal justice system.
But do you know for a fact that they have criminal
No, I don't know.
records?
I couldn't speak to that.
You just say probably they
I
might.
say there might be, but I wouldn't say. I'd have to, check into that, exactly.
I know you testified that the treatment here is the same treatment has been offered at this site prior to the time at which you
Right.
moved in, right? So are you aware when you say the same treatment, are you aware whether there was substance abuse counseling or treatment at this particular site?
We have had clients in the past, when the county operated it, who have what they call dual diagnosis, where they might have some substance abuse history and serious mental illness, because, and we have seen those clients in our program as well. So we might have a co-occurring disorder group for them, to help them with both of those illnesses at the same time. So,
And when you say in that case, a dual diagnosis, what kind of substance abuse would be involved? Would it just be alcohol, or could it be illegal substance abuse as well?
I couldn't say. I mean, I don't have the diagnostics with me to comment on that.
Okay, so you don't, I mean, when you say it's providing the same services that were being provided by the county, you don't know exactly what those services were, right?
Well, I know they provided group and individual therapy. I know that, and I know the kind of groups that they offered were for coping skills and helping them to address their mental illness issues. So I know that those kinds of groups were offered. We also offer groups related to health issues, to help them with their health issues that they also have. And I know they did that, and I know we do that as well.
But you don't know for a fact that there were drug services being offered prior to the time you took over, do you? Drug abuse services?
I know that they're the same clients, and so we're providing the services to those clients right now. So I wouldn't comment. I guess Margaret may be able to say on that, what happened prior.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no further presentations, nor do I have any further witnesses. I would just thank again the board and reiterate a couple of points. The points are this: the County of Dutchess occupied that building again since 1975. Margaret Hurst, who's a manager at the site and very integrally involved in county operations, testified and provided information that the people who occupy that building now, the tenants who occupy that building, provided the same services that the county provided at the time when they occupied that building. It's as simple as that. I know, Ms. Cavell, you were asking about specifics. I'm glad you did. Hopefully the witnesses gave the information as best they could, but Ms. Hurst did reiterate that whatever the county did, whatever that is, substance abuse, mental health, these people are doing the same thing now. I would also say that, as Mr. DiStefano said, as the owner of the building, he's here to help. He's not here blindly in this community. He owns other places. He owns other larger buildings, and he's a steward of this village. And he is ready, willing, and able, through the people that come here today, through my offices, through Mr. Hastings, to be available to address some of the ancillary issues. He stands ready to do that. He's able to do that. He wants to do that. He knows that the community needs this facility, as it has needed it since 1975. This is almost 40 years that this facility has provided the mental health which is necessary. I can't say that anybody in this room has ever used that, but I can certainly say with quite certainty that you have friends, you have relatives, you have neighbors, you have loved ones who have needed mental health services. Unless you've needed it, you don't really can't appreciate it or can't understand it. Hopefully tonight, the people who came here today, who are incredibly well respected in their chosen fields, has shed some light on what they do and the services they provide for our neighbors, for your neighbors that might live next to you, that walk to this facility, that are very, very close in proximity. We need what's offered there, and I think they've done a phenomenal job. New York State has recognized them, as each and every one of them, as providing a phenomenal service. And I would just simply also say that we stand ready to meet as friends. There's nobody here that we take any adverse reaction to or any disagreement with. We're here as friends. We want to continue to be here as friends and leave as friends and not as adversaries. Thank you very much.
Solicitor, one qualification. You just made the statement that there was no change, but from the evidence that presented tonight, that there was no substance abuse aspect at this site before 2011.
I don't think that was said. I think Noni just mentioned.
You just said it. You just said there was no change. And I'm saying that there was in this one category.
I'm not going to argue with you. I'm simply reiterating what Ms. Hurst said.
Which seems to be one of the cruxes of the dialogue.
That might be an interpretation. I'm not sure.
Do you want to
It is the
recall
only
Ms. Hurst and get that clear? I'm not clear on that either. I think for the record. Yeah, let's recall. I mean, could we would like to speak to Ms. Hurst. Seems to be the only one who's got the ability to testify as to the substance abuse nature of this prior to So is she still here? Can she
I
come
think
up?
she's left. However, it's legitimate. I mean, she testified she was here, ready to take any questions if you want me to have her provide additional information. It can't be tonight, but I can certainly have her available, ready, willing, and able to do that.
I think
Well, we certainly have ample record if we wanted to work hard to get it, but if Ms. Hurst wanted to address something to me as acting chairman of the board, because we'll be deliberating on this, I suspect, for a while. I don't mean later tonight, but it's a question that apparently a couple of my colleagues are eager to have a quite explicit answer to.
I think part of
If the question is vague, I can pass it along to you tomorrow or sometime.
I appreciate that, and again, we'll be happy to get you that information. She was here. We're not hiding anything. Nobody's, we're not the boogeyman here. We really do want to explain things, so I'd be happy to provide that to you. I think I understand what you're asking,
Okay.
but if you want to provide a written,
Yeah, why did I do that?
we'd be happy to receive that.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want now to call on the public for comment. I've been given a list that I've been asked to follow, and I don't know how the clipboard stands, but I'd like to ask you to identify yourselves and say where you live. Also, if possible, a lot can be said in 3 minutes or so, or 4. I know there hasn't been ample demonstration of that tonight, but I think it's a good idea. Mike Gee, do you want to start?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Michael Gee. I live at 15 Oak Street. I live next to this facility. Back in April, Chris Chesney and myself noticed a very different change in the clientele in that facility, and it was disturbing what we were looking at, and we decided that we needed to investigate and bring information to the board. So what I did is I Googled the websites of the signs that are on there that had never gone in for village approval, and what I found on all of the websites of the corporations there was that substance abuse is a major part of their therapy, and this has not been done before. What was in that facility was Dutchess County continuing day treatment, and it has been replaced with PROs, but there has been no approach to the regulatory bodies of this village to describe that business model and what happens. And if you go on the county websites, you can find information of what the continuing day treatment was. It was a daycare for elderly, primarily psychiatric patients who had been transitioned out of the closed psychiatric hospitals into group homes. And what it basically said is that they needed adult daycare during the day so that their group home people could, clean the house and go shopping and get them to their medical appointments, and it was approved for up to 70 of these people there, and I lived with them for over 28 years, and there were really no problems with the treatment. It was well run, all right, and the county ran it. When we saw this, I knocked on people's doors, and when I knocked on the doors, a lot of people had stories, occurrences, observations of what was going around with that building that were all of a disturbing nature. And what I did is I gave to the village board on May 14th of this year a petition for them to investigate and find out what was going on, and to basically why were some of these things going on, which I'll list some of the things that were on our thing there. FedEx packages were stolen, multiple trespassing incidents in residents' backyards, multiple panhandling incidents in the business district, public urinations, drug use and distributions in plain sight. A more recent incident happened 2 weeks ago where a lady referred to me about a tourist wanted to know, is it safe to walk in Rhinebeck, because she had just seen a drug deal in front of the Beekman Arms. So on May 16th, Bob Fennell posed 9 very important zoning questions to Mr. Kolnaghi. Who's in your building? How did they get in there? What's the lease agreement? What's the regulatory agencies? What's their mission statement? How many employees do you have? What's your business hours? All good zoning things that no one in this village had ever been given knowledge of because they never approached the planning and the zoning board. They just set up because the county said, come on in. The response from Mr. Hastings, Mr. LeGrand, Mr. Martin was, we will get these answers to you. Many, many responses to that, but really it was a lot of delays. All right, the delays and extensions have extended this period because Mr. Fennell was ready to give a cease and desist on June 11th. All right, and for reasons that I don't know, it was still prolonged until 8/15. On May 18th of this year, I had a conversation with Dr. Leo Stronger. Dr. Leo Stronger was the last county psychologist, I believe, who ran that facility under the county's operation. And he had to transfer to Occupations, Inc. to keep a job. And this is what he said of me, some of his quotes. On day 1 of the changeover, we had 100 new clients assigned to us, just occupations. As a county facility, we dealt with the mentally handicapped. We might have had 1 or 2 who had drug situations. If what you are saying is true, I would, as a nearby homeowner, be enraged. PROS is a different format than the county. It was better run when the county was in charge. These all indicate changes of use. All right? Things are different. Okay? I spoke with Dr. Richard DePass a week later. He had 2 editorials in the Poughkeepsie Journal. The one in May was titled, Dutchess County Mental Health is Broken. And I had a discussion with him, and he says, at one point, the facility you referred to was just psychiatric. Now there are all kinds of things going on in there. I know Rhinebeck is a particularly bad site. I've had clients and former patients who have gone to these contract agencies call me in tears. They're doing nothing for these people, and these patients are in danger of doing bad things. We have noticed a large increase in police activity, and the mayor has said, call the police. So it has gone up. In 2011, there were 17 calls associated with that site. In 2012, there were 34. In 2013, we have 41, and we're still not done. All right. Police officer comments to me because they were very forthcoming in giving information about this site. If the clients require hospitalization due to an incident, we have to leave Rhinebeck and follow the paramedics to St. Francis Psychiatric Ward for ambulances, personal safety, and protection. So you notice your tax dollars are paying for our policemen to leave our municipality, and they're not in here. All right. Another one said there's a big difference between someone who has a mental disability and someone who is a drug addict. You need to understand that they have pled down for more serious charges. There is no room in the county jail. All right? This has now become, for some clients, a quasi-criminal correctional facility. They are there because they have pled down and they have violated New York State's penal code. Everyone needs to be concerned about this, and I ask you to uphold the cease and desist. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Chris Chesney.
Good evening. An hour and 45 minutes ago, when you read the cease and desist order, I thought my comments were irrelevant because he said it so well. And I'd like to thank Jeff for, in a way, making us all aware that our tax dollars are being well spent, that people are being well cared for, that mental health is important. I don't think anyone denies that. That is not what this issue is about. I'll read my comments. I have copies of, and thank you all for allowing me the opportunity. My name is Chris Chesney. I own the property and business at 51 West Market Street. I've owned it since 1995. 75 is when they moved in. I don't look that good. And I'm a Village of Rhinebeck resident. The occupancy and business practices at 47 West Market Street have clearly changed. The most obvious evidence of this charge lies in the fact that there are 2 new signs advertising, and the signs appear to me to say that there are 4 businesses in there, it appears to me, on the front of the building. And on the Hudson Valley Mental Hygiene website, the contact address listed is 47 West Market Street, Suite 2. To my knowledge, there's never been approval for Suite 1 or 2 at this location. In 2010, the landlord was issued a building permit for interior renovations. And I don't know if you have copies of that file, or Jeff, but I don't know that there's another letter that appears with an application for a building permit, but the building permit application says interior renovations, makes no mention of additional suites, additional offices, additional anything, it's interior renovations. So I think that's important to note. To the best of my knowledge, not only have the new signs been displayed without approval, I didn't find any evidence of site plan approval for signs on the front of this building, but the division of space into the suites for various businesses has likewise happened without approval. It appears the landlord slid this one to the building inspector. Several years ago, when I relocated my business to 51 West Market Street, I was required to appear before the planning board to review my site plan. I believe this same section of the zoning code applies to Mr. Kolnagi, especially since he has increased the occupancy of this building considerably to 4 tenants. I assume they are when DC Mental Hygiene vacated the building and was replaced by Occupations Incorporated, Hudson Valley Mental Hygiene, Rhinebeck Counseling Center, I mean that appears on the sign, and Lexington Center for Recovery. None of the neighbors were notified of these changes. The residents should have been made aware that a treatment facility for people with severe substance abuse was being introduced into their neighborhood. The zoning code requires such notification, and the residents have a right to know. It is my understanding that in the past 30 years, there has never been any resident, business person, or neighbor who appeared before the village board to express concerns about the activity at this facility. The Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene, and I apologize if that's not the right term, operated their outpatient business in a professional, considerate manner. Since it was quietly privatized and new tenants moved in, residents of Oak Street, business owners, and Rhinebeck residents have signed a petition and are appearing before the village board with serious concerns about the new tenants. The lack of compliance to the very zoning laws that protects them, and the apparent change to business practice which is altering the character of this section of the community. Another clear change to the use of this property, which should have been part of site plan review, is the manner in which the clients or consumers arrived to this facility. Dutchess County Mental Hygiene operated several vans. The Loop Bus provided transportation, and group homes had their own transportation. This system had very little impact on the neighborhood because the vehicles systematically and periodically arrived and departed predictably arrived and departed twice a day. Presently, a parade of independent taxis transports individuals to the site all day long. And I will note, there was a comment about they don't arrive till 9, or they arrive at 8:15 in the morning when the facility is not open, 7:45, 8:15. We're there, we see it, it's a fact. The facility does not have the capacity to accommodate these taxis. In addition, the practice has increased traffic, threatening the safety of the residents on the very narrow Oak Street corridor. The issue needs particular attention for the residents and tourists who travel the sidewalks and streets in the surrounding vicinity, as well as the children who travel to and from the library and recreational facilities. This is not an honest mistake. A landlord who manages multiple properties, a government agency, and a $70 million not-for-profit that operates businesses throughout the state must be familiar with the laws that protect the residents and businesses of this community. I urge this board to uphold the law and the findings of a very experienced and respected former zoning enforcement officer. These residents of Oak Street, along with our entire community and its visitors, deserve to continue to live their lives as they did prior to the change of use. And just one comment that I just find from Jeff's presentation that he made in his original comments, that it wasn't the responsibility of the staff of these facilities to supervise the individuals when they left the premises, but that fact that it was later said that some of these individuals come from supervised group homes. If you have to be supervised when you go home, why don't you have to be supervised when you're in a treatment facility in the village? I don't know what that refers to. Thank you all very much. I'm sorry Mr. Kolnagi couldn't be here tonight to address us. That would have been very nice, but thank you all for attending tonight.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chesney. Will you have copies for all of us?
Yeah.
You want to give one to? That's great. Thanks a lot. Colleen Cruikshank.
Good evening. My name is Colleen Cruikshank, and I am the Executive Director of the Rhinebeck Area Chamber of Commerce and also a village resident. Thank you for holding this hearing and for the opportunity to address you. I have been the Executive Director of the Chamber for 3 years and was on the Board of Directors for 6 years prior to that. Having worked closely with the business community during that time, I've had the privilege to learn about the many nuances of our village planning and zoning codes and the regulations that have been developed to ensure that businesses who are opening their doors, as well as those who are in existence who are ready to expand, are doing their part to safeguard the unique atmosphere of our historic community. Since 47 West Market Street was turned over to private agencies following a long history with the county, it has clearly operated with complete disregard for our codes. I have been at numerous planning meetings and have witnessed what businesses need to formally get approval for, from change of use to change of signage, change of space configuration, parking, etc., and our business community respects that these procedures are a necessary part of being a part of a community that works so hard to ensure that its character is maintained despite growth and development. We are in the very fortunate position of being a very desirable destination for both businesses and consumers, and we must do everything we can to protect all that makes Rhinebeck so attractive to those who want to work, visit, or live here, particularly in this volatile economic climate. The businesses on West Market Street and Garden Street have been working very hard to draw customers to that side of the village by having appropriate signage, great curb appeal, high-quality products, and top-caliber services. It is imperative that visitors, residents, employees, and business owners feel safe and respected at all times. It is also critically important to our ongoing quality of life for businesses and for residents that the planning and zoning requirements, which everyone has worked so hard to implement, be upheld. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does any of the board have anything to comment on? Could you leave a copy of that with the secretary?
You got her comments into the record.
I can bring
That would be good. Thank you. Kitty Gee.
Hi, my name is Kitty Gee. I've been a resident of the village of Rhinebeck for 30 years. All of the 30 years, I have lived at 15 Oak Street, a site that has served people with mental hygiene needs for 38 years. For 29 of the years that I've lived there, the clients' needs were mostly treated by the employees of the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene. I never experienced any problems in those 29 years. A little over a year ago, the operation of this site was taken over by private corporations, and since then, there has been significant change, and it has had a dramatic and negative impact on this community. Joel Tyner hosted 2 forums this past July, and the forums were titled, "What's Going On at 47 West Market Street?" These private corporations were invited to speak, and representatives from Occupations, Inc., and Lexington Center for Recovery attended the first forum, and Hudson Valley Mental Health and Lexington Center for Recovery attended the second forum. The Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene was also invited, but they did not attend. What I learned from these 2 forums solidified for me that 47 West Market Street has become a substantial safety risk to this community. When asked to describe the degree of their clients' mental illnesses and substance abuse issues, the representatives of the corporations responded that the degree of the illnesses is severe. I live right next door, so I know that's true. Yes, they are severe. The severity of these clients' mental health and substance abuse challenges is a change from when the county operated the site. When asked what substance abuse addictions were being treated, the response was alcohol, heroin, crack, cocaine, and representatives from Lexington Center for Recovery also shared that sexual addictions are treated here. I learned that many of the clients are part of the criminal justice system. Many are court-referred for their treatment. Again, that's a change in clients. While the representatives could not give exact numbers of clients being treated at those forums, they couldn't give the exact percentages of exactly where the clients came from. Lexington Center for Recovery did share that they think that most likely they come from Hyde Park, Red Hook, Rhinebeck, Tivoli, maybe some from Ulster County. Hudson Valley Mental Health shared that the Occupations Inc. had 95 clients on their census. At Joel Tyner's second forum, one of the higher functioning clients came and he shared some comments also, and I'm confident of my recollection of his comments. He shared that the site is understaffed. The site has 3 group therapy. He was an Occupations Inc. Client, just to let you know. The site has 3 group therapy classrooms. Each classroom can have a maximum of 15 clients, and there's 1 staff member during the group therapy sessions. The client also said because of the severity and difference in people's problems, it gets loud and chaotic. They are supposed to go into the overflow room, but they usually go outside to smoke cigarettes and do scratch-off lottery tickets. The client also shared that some of the people that live in the same residence, they come together to 47 West Market Street. They are around each other 24/7, and they bring their issues with them. The forums also involved conversations around the large amount of downtime for clients while they're waiting for taxi cab pickup or for therapy appointments. The representatives shared that a beautiful waiting room was available inside for the client's use, but we know from our observations that many of the clients use the parking lot and sometimes the village streets as their waiting room. Times of operation has also changed from when the county ran it. Cabs drop clients off as early as and sometimes before 8 a.m., but the facility doesn't open its doors until 8:30. Treatments end around 2 p.m., but clients are still there as late as 3:15. And the fact that they have hours on Tuesdays until 9 p.m. is definitely a change from when the county ran it. The business model, as you've heard, of these private corporations is another significant change. The PROS approach, which is personalized recovery-oriented services, is very different from the business model that was used by the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene. Undisputably, the clients coming to 47 West Market Street are people in real need of recovery and rehabilitation therapy. No one's going to argue with that. But they are also people in need of supervision. Because there is no supervision given, 47 West Market Street has become a substantial safety risk to this community. It's beyond my comprehension how, without approvals or knowledge to this community, a decision was made to have the 47 West Market Street facility become a site that has changed so much since 1975. This facility operates in our business district. It is situated across the street from one of our funeral homes. It abuts a residential neighborhood with at least 20 children, and it is less than 500 feet from the property line of our community's beautiful recreation park. The entire village and town of Rhinebeck residents need to be concerned. I ask this board to uphold the cease and desist. Before I close, I did receive a letter from another village resident who couldn't be here tonight, and she asked me to read this to you. I have a copy. She asked that this be read publicly. Dear Board, I am unable to attend tonight's meeting due to out-of-town family commitments, but I wish to express how unhappy I am as an Oak Street resident with its new climate due to the change of use allowed at the Lexington Center located at 47 West Market Street. I am no longer comfortable walking down the street with my 5-year-old daughter to go to the library. I feel unsafe as she asks questions about who and why is happening in the parking lot. The people who hang out all day and into the evening create beyond an undesirable atmosphere for our village. Traffic has increased significantly with drivers who do not respect our street as a residential area with families and children playing. Please uphold the cease and desist order for the premises. This situation needs to be effectively addressed and not ignored. Sincerely, Debbie Hazelwood, 20 Oak Street, Rhinebeck. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gee. Can we have a copy for the file? Oh, okay, we'll wait. Fine. Don't want to embarrass anybody.
We should take testimony from.
I've thought about that, I'll get to it.
Okay.
Thank you. My list differs slightly, but Kathy Brzee wants to speak.
My name is Kathy Brzee. I've lived in the village of Rhinebeck for 21 years, and specifically at 18 Oak Street. When I first moved to Rhinebeck, I rented at that location, and I liked the neighborhood so much that I decided to buy the building. And we've been happy there ever since. A lot of changes have been made on Oak Street for the good, and we take pride in our street. But as everyone else has stated lately, changes have been made, and it is really affecting the way I walk around the village. I no longer walk past 47 West Market Street during the day. I take the long way around because several times when I have walked by, there are people sitting on the sidewalk, they're in the parking lot, they're speaking loudly. You can hear some of their conversations even from my house at 18, which is not really that far away, but you can hear conversations that are not pleasant to hear. Another thing I want to do is Mikey received a letter from Rhonda Hammond, and she wanted this letter to be read. Dear Town and Village of Rhinebeck Boards, as a victim of a home invasion by a resident of Daytop 3 years ago, I think there needs to be major controls on what type of facility can be open in a residential area, especially when court-ordered individuals visit there. I have been a victim of these people in the past 6 to 8 months, yelling obscenities at me and others, relieving themselves on a building, and just giving you the feeling of being scared just walking by them. Even though my home invasion was 3 years ago, I still don't walk by a window in the dark. I still can't come home alone to an empty house in the dark. I still cannot walk my dog in the dusk or dark, whether it is morning or night. When I hear a sound outside, my heart stops. My life is forever changed by the type of individual you are now allowing in our small village. The person that did this to me is getting out of jail on November 18th. I have already called the Victims Assistance Line to see what rights I have. End of the day, none. Please make sure what has happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else in our community. Sincerely, Rhonda Hammond, 533 Acrid Hook Road in Rhinebeck. The other thing I wanted to say was we need to keep a watch on our community, because if we don't, one day we'll wake up and we'll see that everything has changed. We really need to keep aware of what's going on and to keep the village and the town informed of what's going on. And thank you very much for your consideration of this situation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brzee. Sharon Rushton is asked to speak.
My name is Sharon Rushton. I reside at 12 Oak Street. I sent an email to as many of the village board members as I could, and I also sent it to your clerk. I'm going to read it. I'm writing to bring to your attention some concerns about the safety of the neighborhood surrounding the 47 West Market Street facility. First, you should know I'm a social worker, so I'm in the business of helping people. I'm bringing these concerns to you because I feel unsafe in my own home due to this activity at this facility. I can see consumers being dropped off at least an hour prior to any treatment programs. Some have been left off as early as 7:45 a.m. The doors appear to be locked, and these consumers scatter into the village or along the perimeter of the grounds. They're usually chain smoking, displaying pacing behaviors, or muttering very loudly to themselves. They're usually dressed in a very disheveled manner and wear weather-inappropriate clothing, usually jackets in 80-degree heat. As a professional who has worked with the developmentally disabled and mentally ill, I know, I can safely presume, that these individuals have some severe problems that they're coming to the center to work on. Why in the world would these consumers be unsupervised? And it is very obvious that this population of consumers is very different than the ones that came prior to January 2012. I'm sure you'll find some evidence of increased petty crimes after this date in the village. Consumers have come in my own backyard, uninvited. I've encountered a few of the consumers in town, and if I make eye contact, I've been asked for cigarettes, money, and even a ride. Does something really have to happen before action can be taken to keep the consumers in this facility supervised? Yes, they have a choice to attend, but if they don't go to their sessions after accepting their Medicaid paid-for transportation to the center, then isn't that Medicaid fraud? Because they are surely tabulated as being present and just not participating. Again, I want to make sure that all these consumers get the help they need, but I'm not sure I want to risk my safety for them to get it. Please, help our neighborhood remain safe. There are consumers that are offenders of many different crimes coming into Rhinebeck daily. Drug dispensing appears to be giving them some purpose to attend. But then they're out laying on my sidewalk, recovering from it, or out yelling at their peers in very foul language. Although at one public meeting, an official of these businesses attempted to convince us that the consumers are local, I don't think he realized how many of them are from out of county and surely out of our town. Would you please uphold the zoning law for this facility? Please? Before something happens to someone or something. And thank you for taking consideration of this request.
Thank you. Bob Donaldson.
Good evening. My name is Robert Donaldson. I live on Mill Road in the town of Rhinebeck, but I had the privilege of being an educator in this community for over 30 years. Recently, Mike Gee asked me to assist him on this project, and when I sat down and saw the copious amount of work that he had compiled and the hours that he put in, along with his wife Kitty, I think when you get a chance, you see him on the street, thank Mike and Kitty and Chris Chesney for all the work they have done on this. All I could offer was to Mike and Kitty was to add some closure, and as a great legal teacher once taught me to keep it simple, and that I will. Mayor Jim Reardon once said that the safety of the people in our community is the #1 concern. Now, with that statement in mind, the people who spoke here this evening in favor of having the ZBA uphold and enforce the cease and desist order look to this board, all right, and to examine the village code and the facts presented here tonight and what have transpired in the past few months. The zoning codes were enacted to protect and promote public safety and the general welfare in this community by preserving the unique character of the village and protecting residents from nuisances and noise and other unsightly, obtrusive, and offensive land use activities. Now, we know that for many years, these goals had been maintained by the Department of Mental Hygiene without any complaints from this community. However, all of that changed when the current tenants of 47 West Market Street took over that facility, all right, and did not comply with the local zoning codes. The tenants expanded the program services to include drug and alcohol treatment and both changed and increased the population without any prior notice or approval. The tenants never submitted any site plan to the planning board, nor did they submit any applications for the signs that are now displayed. Therefore, no opportunity was provided for the local residents and the businesses to address the impact such changes would have had on the residences and the residents and the business people of this community. Had they done so, had they complied with the local ordinances, all right, some of the mutual and arrived a mutual and shared resolution could have been arrived at. All right, a resolution that could have prevented some of the issues dealing with public safety and general concern that were presented by the people here tonight. A permit to do interior renovation does not extend to adding to the type of services offered and increasing the number of clients referred to or assigned to 47 West Market Street. To do such changes, the tenants were required to follow the law, the village codes, but for whatever reasons chose not to do so. The people in the Rhinebeck community in this meeting tonight believe that these codes are just, codes that all must obey, and that includes the tenants of 47 West Market Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. We have a few more people who'd like to speak. Thanks a lot. Yes.
We should have Bob testify.
I know. Joe Morgan.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Morgan. I grew up in Rhinebeck, moved here in 1969. I wasn't asked to come here and speak. I just wanted to give some of my word. I do go to the mental health. I go to the mental health for the reason of being in a coma for 5 weeks. I was on a mountain bike in Poughkeepsie and somebody knocked me over and didn't have a helmet on and I hit my head on the curb. So I was in hospitals for 9.5 months, and after that I started seeing a doctor in High Park and was very grateful to be alive. I still live in Rhinebeck and will not get on that mountain bike, but there have been hurdles in life since this, but I'm just trying to move forward and get some guidance. So I understand there's disagreements with the people in the area that don't like what's happening, but everybody's got to have an understanding. There are people that need guidance, and then speak with whoever you have to get this under control in a good manner, and have the idea that everybody does need this help. There is a variety of people there. I'm not there for drugs or alcohol. It is for the TBI, which is a hurdle to get over just that in my life. But I do I'm very grateful that there is the center right here in Rhinebeck. Occasionally there is a taxi, but I do not like them interfering with the location and putting a burden on the people right on Oak. So I do try and get rides from friends or family, but I don't want to be a thorn in anybody's side. So please, everybody here, consider there are people that need some guidance, some help in life. I don't have what I used to. I don't have the get up and go like I used to, and just looking to move forward in life. I'm not going back to the high school career of swimming, wrestling, baseball, soccer, cross country. Although my high school record in wrestling was 126 wins, 18 losses, and 12 most outstanding wrestler awards. I went to the States twice. So I hope you don't mind anything I've said, and God bless everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Piper Woods.
Hi, I'm Piper Woods. I manage and own 6422 and 6423 Montgomery Street. It's used to be the Rhinebeck Garage, and now it's Montgomery Row Shopping Center. As a manager of a property, commercial property in the village, and an owner, I know that it is challenging sometimes. But at the same sense, I what I'm really looking for with regard to the board and what I hope that the landlord will do is really to follow the zoning law. I mean, everybody else in the village has to do it, and I don't really quite understand why you've somehow been able to, slip over going to site plan. Even if even simply in regards to, you kind of said over and over that the services haven't changed, but I think really what's missing is that the intensity of the services have changed. And at the end of the day, whether I have I've had to go back and get a special permit for service use for a karate studio, for anything really that's service. I honestly think that's whether it's the cease and desist or whether you're actually going through the process for a service use under the zoning law, you need to do that. I mean, you need to go back for sign approval, and through the process of getting a special permit, you will have to get seeker. There will have to be a public hearing. These sort of things will come up as part of the process. And I really am just looking for fairness across the board. I've had to go through, and I appreciate what the ZBA and the planning board and the different boards of this town, of this village, do, because it does, keep a watchful eye on what is going on in the village, for the safety of the people who are here and also for the businesses that are here. And I have to say, my property butts up to Garden Street, which is just around the corner from where this site is. It's extremely important to have safety on your site. And I know that you kind of testified or said a few times like all is well within the building, or that you only did internal renovations, but it's not just inside the building, it's also the site. You have to be aware and be responsible for what's going on in the site, what's going on in the parking lot. Is your site increasing traffic? Is your site disturbing the safety of the community? Environmental, I don't know, all these things that seeker looks for. And I'm not sure that the different people, I don't think they really covered that. It was pretty much said that your services have changed from, where you were in Northern Dutchess Hospital to here. All the locations are separate. It's not like if I have Rhinebeck Karate, above in Barbara Schreiber's building, and she decides to move to my building, that she gets Rhinebeck Karate gets help me out here, like a free pass, she would have to go back, just as we did, to get a service use, special permit, public hearing, the whole 9 yards. And I think that's what you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. And the last person on my list, but we certainly will hear from anybody who wants to speak, is Marilyn Hatch.
I hadn't planned to speak tonight. I have a foster daughter who participates in the PROS program. And she was all psyched up to come, and then really felt she lives in the community. And she really felt that she couldn't speak because of her fear of being ostracized. So I'm here on her behalf. I hope that these professionals have heard what you've said. I think it's really important for them to work with the community, with the ZBA, to address these questions. But I'm not here to say one is right and the other is wrong. I'm here to tell you how my foster daughter feels. She feels that this past year has been a wonderful, wonderful year for her. First place, she hasn't had to be hospitalized. Second place, she's now doing a volunteer job. She's never, ever been able to hold down any kind of work-related aspect of her life. She lives right here in the community. She has her own apartment. And she tries to be a really good citizen. And I really congratulate I'm a former employee of Hudson River Psychiatric Center. way back when, in the 1960s. And we warehoused these people. That's what we did. And it was really wonderful to have these adult daycare programs, and they came here to give people in the adult homes a respite. But I think now the treatment of the mentally ill is changing, and we need to look and at this treatment. And I think it's evolving, but we're getting people, we're no longer warehousing them. We want to get them back into the community and to be productive citizens. And I cannot express my appreciation to the PROS program for what they have done for my foster daughter. Now, my foster daughter has a son, and I call him my foster grandson. And he's been a part of the, unfortunately, the Lexington program. And I wish it was different. I wish he didn't have to be a part of that program. But he not only has mental health issues, but sometimes they just go right together. Those who have mental health problems also have drug and alcohol problems. And it's not because he wants to have these problems, he wants to have them solved. And I just want to share with you, this is the Lexington Center for Recovery, and I'll read it because this is exactly what happened to him. And this is staying clean and sober. Yes, drugs and alcohol are very prevalent. All you have to do is stand on street right over here, next street over, a Lutheran church. And you can see those who are part of the AA program coming and going. I mean, the Lutheran Church provides a wonderful service right in our community, right in a residential area. And not all of them can stay sober. Not all of them can stay drug-free, but they try. They really try. This is from the Lexington Recovery Center. You are coming to the clinic because you need help in trying to remain clean from drugs and alcohol. However, to be able to work effectively on your problems, we ask that you not come to the clinic under the influence of drugs or alcohol. If this occurs, we will help you get to a safe place. Outpatient programming cannot be held with patients who are under influence. And this is true, and this is what has happened. I hope that they will work within the zoning board to get a variance for them to stay where they are. I think it's important for them to work very closely with the neighbors and have the neighbors work closely with this community of patients. And I thank you. It's very spontaneous, but here I am.
Thank you, Marilyn.
And if you
Are there others who would like?
There is definitely a problem, and I think it needs to be solved and worked out, okay?
I agree. Thanks. Are there others who wish to speak? Yeah, oh, there are some others. Let's start there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Starkweather. I am the pastor of the Lutheran Parish of Northern Dutchess, including Third Lutheran right over on Livingston Street. I began my call about 3 months ago, maybe closer to 4, in the middle of, what month was that? July. You can tell what my strong suit is. It's not time telling in math. I am not responsible for the beginning of the 12-step programs that function out of Third Lutheran, but it is my great honor to have inherited them from my predecessor. In my history, I was an undergrad in human services. I worked in a children's shelter in Georgia, and I've also had the great privilege of working with many people with mental health issues, with addiction problems, and I myself am a recovering self-injurer. That might be a topic for a whole nother night's forum, but what I'm here to talk to you about is that I'm hearing two issues tonight. One is the question of zoning, and that seems to be, in my mind, the question that we need to be addressing here. The other is the question of the people who are being served by this institution, this building with these three organizations. And what I'm hearing is a great deal of demonization of people with mental health issues, of people with addiction issues. People don't choose to be addicted. It happens. They make the choice initially to start on maybe drugs or alcohol or self-harm, gambling, sex, but they don't choose the addiction. They live with the addiction. People don't choose to be mentally ill. They live with mental illness. I am here tonight because a flyer was dropped in my letterbox. It talks about the zoning issues, but the majority of it focuses on the fact that what is happening here is drastically changing the fabric of our community. And it says that this situation poses a threat to all of us who live, work, and play in Rhinebeck. I mean absolutely no disrespect to the people who feel afraid, who have been victimized. That is a terrible feeling, to be afraid where you live, to be victimized, to have gone through something at the hands of another person. Having brokenness in our community is indeed a threat. It threatens to make us more human in our interactions with one another. This place is dangerous because it means that we'll have to get outside of our shell. We'll have to face the truth that life isn't safe. Hard conversations happen. Life is dangerous. I appreciate all of your time this evening. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. May I remind you to try to keep your, not commenting on any individual, keep your comments close to the topic that we'll be wrestling with, that is the appeal. Yes, I know you're back there too, so.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Gregory. I live at 2 Prospect Street. My youngest stepson, Stephen, died on July 21st, 2011, as a direct result of his mental illness. Very suddenly and unexpectedly died, and I feel well qualified to speak to this forum, at this forum tonight. Thank you to the board. I would just like to take my 3 minutes and summarize some of the issues that I heard that for me as a resident are unclear. The first was the point that Bob Fresnel brought up, that in 2011, the internal memo that was submitted talked about internal changes in the building, but didn't talk about the change in organizations that would be now tenants of the building. I think that's a really key point that isn't clarified, and I think that needs to be clarified. Rachel, you brought up and asked questions about the differences between the current clients under the 3 new tenants and what had previously gone on in terms of treatment. And then that raised the sub-issue of chemical dependency. And then that was addressed by Margaret Hurst as having taken place before on the grounds of Dutchess County, Northern Dutchess Hospital, but have now moved to this site. I think these are things that need to be clarified because I don't feel in what we heard tonight that the letter of the law was followed completely, and I think intentionally or unintentionally there was some obfuscation that happened and needs to be clarified. The person from Lexington brought up the fact that a majority of the clients of Lexington are referred by the court system. So I think that needs to be looked into because that is something that does talk about, well, these people have been in court, so there's a reason for that. So that does talk about a difference perhaps in the clientele, and that needs to be looked at. I think that the person from occupations talked about having about 47 clients, I think it was, in the neighborhood of 45 to 47 clients per day, and did also cite that more than half of them arrive by cab. So if I do that math, then there's 20 to 25 cab trips coming in for the clients of occupation. So I think that needs to be looked at because that does change the tenor of the neighborhood. A personal question I would just like to ask, because so many of the people who spoke here did talk about the clients are from, they said Hyde Park and Red Hook and mostly Rhinebeck, and many arrive on foot, etc. As a resident of the neighborhood, I would just like to ask, why do so many Kingston cabs drive up the street? And maybe that's because they're hired, or they are the people that are hired by Medicare. But it does seem to be cab drivers who don't really know where to park and don't know how to park and don't know how to drive safely around the corner of West Chestnut Street and Orchard Street. So these are the issues that I felt were very unclear, have not been clarified tonight. I would respectfully ask the board to look into them and try to assess whether or not all of the right steps were in fact followed. I thought the woman from Montgomery Row spoke very clearly about the fact that other organizations in this village, for all of the right reasons, have to jump a lot of hurdles to have their organizations work in the village. And that's for the good of all of us, and I would respectfully ask the board to ensure that all of the right steps have been followed in this case as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. There was somebody in the back. Sure.
I'm Jackie Van Wagner. I'm the mom of 3 teenage boys. And I came to this tonight because I just wanted to kind of hear what was going on with the whole...
Speak more into the mic.
With the whole Lexington and counseling and all of that. And earlier when you were stating about, what are drug addicts and mental illness. And, well, my family has been totally ruined because of drugs and alcohol. And actually, my family has been to Lexington, and I don't think that stating too about the criminals, have you read the paper? Do you read the papers every week when all the criminals in the paper are our 21-year-old kids? That's who's in the paper. All our 21-year-old kids that are getting arrested for heroin, that are getting arrested for cocaine. Why? Because our town has failed them. That's why we need programs like Lexington in Rhinebeck. I have a 12th grader, a 10th grader, and also an 8th grader. You know how many drugs are in our school? And you're worried about having a rehab program in Rhinebeck? I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. What would you like to say? Heroin, cocaine. You can buy heroin right at the school. You can buy heroin at the rec park. I mean, read the Observer today. There's kids every day that are getting arrested that graduated from Rhinebeck High School. Every day. They're not the people who are mentally ill that are in Rhinebeck not bothering anyone. The people that are doing it is our own kids that are robbing their neighbors to buy drugs. They're all Rhinebeck kids that are doing it. Does anyone not see this? Or does everybody want to turn a blind eye to it? Honestly, I just lost my stepson July 28th, who had a drug and alcohol problem too. Okay, it's not easy, it's not fun. But you know what, everybody needs to wake up in Rhinebeck and realize that we're not the snooty little people that we try to portray. There is some normal people in Rhinebeck, and everybody needs to learn to start helping our kids and stop just blaming it on the mentally ill. Be thankful you're not mentally ill, and be thankful you don't have a drug and alcohol problem.
Bob Fennell reserved his time to speak earlier, and I did ask him not to question the witnesses. But Bob, do you have some thoughts that you want to share with us, or if we had?
I guess.
Should he be sworn in?
He is.
I will
Use the mic.
This is from the Pace Law School. They offer educational programs about the meaning of zoning, and they do training of zoning boards. And let me just read what they say about changing to another non-conform use. The property owner's right to continue a non-conforming use does not allow the owner to change to a materially different use. The important question here is what constitutes a material change. The consequence of finding that a material change in use has occurred is to deem the prior non-conforming use abandoned and therefore terminated. The property owner could argue that the change of a non-conforming use from one commercial use to another, for example, should not be prohibited by the zoning ordinance. To change a building's occupancy from a dairy plant to a business that rents machinery simply shifts the type of non-conforming from one commercial category to another. It has been held, however, and this is the important part, that it is not only a change in the volume of the business conducted, but in the character of that business that determines whether one business use is a continuation of another. This is true despite the generic similarity between the old and the new proposed uses. So that's, I'll give you this thing. This is about non-conforming uses.
Wait, Bob, can we ask Bob some questions?
A question, yeah.
Yeah, just one question.
3 or 4.
I think I speak for the whole board when I say our issue is very limited to whether the cease and desist order should be upheld or not upheld. We say nothing about what we feel about drug abuse, children, mental illness generally. I mean, I appreciate your comments, but that's, unfortunately, it's really not what we're here to deliberate. So Bob, could you just walk us through your rationale for issuing the cease and desist order, please? Why you deem this property a non-conforming use and the current use of it an intensification of that non-conforming use? Could you do that with citations to the zoning law?
Well, non-conforming use, first of all, is a use that is not currently permitted in the zoning law. It's a grandfathered use. It's something that was previously allowed for whatever reason, I think, and it is was a legal use then, and the zoning law has changed, and it's no longer a permitted use. So it's grandfathered. It can continue as long as it doesn't change, and that's what a non-conforming use is.
And can I stop you right there? What is in the zoning law now that doesn't permit this use that did permit it at one time?
I can't speak to what happened at one time and how this got approved.
But currently.
Well, currently, the zoning law lists the permitted. It's a permissive law. Zoning is a permissive law. It tells you what you can do. It doesn't tell you what you can't do. It lists the various uses that are allowed in the various zoning districts. And mental health facilities or these uses are not listed as permitted in anywhere in the zoning law. And so they're not permitted.
And how did you, so at some point you deemed there to be an intensification of this non-conforming use, right?
That's correct.
On what grounds did you deem there to be an intensification?
From what I heard from the various people, from Mr. Gee and the neighbors, and understanding that this was a substance abuse program that didn't seem to be there before.
Did you have any knowledge about whether there had been a substance abuse program there before? Did you know whether there was or not?
I thought that there was not.
Anybody have any other questions?
No.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I grew up in Rhinebeck my whole life. I'm an 8th generation. Why does one man have that control over our village?
Well, wait.
Because he talked to this gentleman, and now he thinks there's a different program in this building. He has now deemed it unacceptable.
It's his job.
That's his job. He's the zoning enforcement officer. It's the answer.
But he doesn't even have any backup, any credentials to back up, except a conversation with a neighbor and something he thinks might happen. I know it's his job. When I go to work, and I work in the business office, my financial director wants proof. She wants my backup. Where's his backup to say,
That's why we're having
That's
this hearing.
what we're doing tonight. That's
May
what's
I point out that Bob was the zoning enforcement officer. He's here of his own Will, to help us understand something that happened before he left the office. I think we have a new zoning enforcement officer. Perhaps you'd like to talk to him about his job and how he comes by it and what experience he has. Bob's not privy to the record.
He made this decision.
He's not privy to the records of the office now.
Yes, but he made this decision.
That's right.
So where are the credentials to back up this decision? A conversation with a neighbor and something he thinks that's going on.
That's what we're doing tonight.
So basically, so none of
There's-
you want to say yes to that, because that's basically what he did. He made a decision
I-
on a neighbor conversation.
That's why we're having this hearing.
And a service that he thinks is going on.
Mr. Martin provided me with,
Three neighbors, that's better.
But what I'm saying, it's the zoning law, that's what he's.
I don't think we can have a community discussion on this. Do you want to say one more thing and then we will?
Mr. Martin provided me with information that there was a substance abuse program at the facility in his letter to me of, I don't know, in July, I guess it was. And it was my understanding that there was not a substance abuse program there previously, and that's why I based that.
And that's for us to decide, having heard all that we could hear tonight. We will have a motion to adjourn shortly, but before we adjourn, we'll need to have a date when we can take this back up again. Karen, do you have any suggestions for us? We have by law 62 days to defer this, but I don't think we want to go that far. So when's the next time we could put this on a calendar?
November 21st is our next zoning board meeting.
And we already have 3 items on that agenda.
First special meeting, the first Thursday of December.
Let's put it on as the 4th item with the understanding that if we don't think we have time, we will hold it over to that next date. So it'll either be next Thursday or,
Well, not next Thursday, but Thursday the 20.
the next meeting is when?
The 21st, November 21st.
Right. And the next meeting after that, in case we have to push it to that, will be the next date certain that we will take this up, right?
You can make your decision at that next meeting, just adjourn it to the 21st.
Yeah, if possible, I'd like to get the numbers out there because there are a lot of people concerned about this, and I suspect this will not survive the 3 items that are going to be on the 21st. But we can put that out at the next meeting if you want to.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes.
Please, the Zoning Board of Appeals has only one facility to discuss the zoning law. It has nothing to do, per se, at this moment with what takes place there. None of us are against mental health programming, training. I grew up in it, and I worked with psychiatric patients myself. That's not the point. The point is the landlord went against the zoning law from the evidence that we've heard, or at least that seems to be the case. And we've got to straighten it out. It's just a matter of zoning. It has nothing to do with the health benefits facilities there. And that's the misnomer of people are using the drug abuse, because she says the high school has it. But we're here for zoning, period.
Well spoken, Lauren.
Okay, the hour is late, and we've heard a lot tonight. I move that we adjourn this meeting until the next available date.
Is there a second?
That's the 21st.
No, just a moment. We've got to finish our business here. I'll talk to you in a minute.
Is it continuation of the public hearing? That's why I asked.
No,
No.
no, it's a continuation of our hearing.
What about Maryland?
Yes, I'd like to finish the
second.
motion. Seconded. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Done.